So I'm lucky when I gets to give the first speech. It's kind of a good thing because I get nervous then. Speak up. Sorry, Josh. Hi, so I'm Zane. See, Josh. I'm Zane. I live in Lucedale, grew up with Evan, and here with my wife, Taylor. And so I had the pleasure of growing up with Evan in middle school and high school, and we spent our first year of junior college together, just not learning a thing and watching The Office, and that's all we did. About a week ago, Evan said, "Hey, just so you know, you're going to be giving a speech at the wedding." And so I figured that would give me enough time to prepare something memorable to say or something worthwhile for all of you to hear. And I'm a big procrastinator, and so that didn't happen. And the 7-hour drive up here, I still didn't come up with anything. So Paige, the 30-second walk that you came down the aisle, that's when I came up with something. And that's kind of how I am. We kind of shoot from the hip and go from there. But like I said, I grew up with Evan. I had to go with that route, I guess, first. And it's been a pleasure watching you become the man that you are today. Like a true man, a good, godly man, and a great brother to have. And Paige, I look forward to you watching you and Evan grow together and live life together, and then live life with Taylor and I, and then we all get to enjoy it. But the 30 seconds that Paige said you walked in, I was like, came up with what I really wanted to say. And I love, I've been in a lot of weddings, a lot of friends have been in weddings, so I always love to watch the husband watch the bride like walk down the aisle. And you kind of get the feel of what that wedding is going to be like. And watching Evan watch you is how it's meant to be. Just watching him, watch you come to him, how I watched my bride come to me. And it's been an honor to be a part of y'all's wedding. Y'all are going to be blessed for being obedient to the Lord in y'all's wedding and glorify Him through this whole process. And that's really it for me. Nothing long or memorable or spectacular to say, but Taylor and I love y'all, and we look forward to spending many happy years watching y'all grow with us and learn together. We love y'all.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Stansberry and I am one of Paige's matrons of honor. I was a little shocked when she asked me to be the matron of honor. This is in fact just somebody who's married, which is me, so matron of honor. And I have been friends with Paige for close to 8 years now. I met Paige in 2012 while attending Boyce College when I moved on to her hall. I attended public school in Chicago, and so moving to a small Baptist college in Kentucky was a bit of a culture shock. I was immediately drawn to Paige because of her contagious love for the Lord and love for people, her adventurous spirit, her huge imagination, and her knack for having a good time. We bonded over our passions for hiking, traveling, discussing the beautiful things in life. Marriage seemed so far off when we became friends, and here I am speaking at your wedding. Over the years, we've started and ended romantic relationships, we've started and ended jobs, we've moved in and out of homes many times, so many times. We've been through sweet and also bitter seasons, and we laughed and we cried and everything in between that. Paige, honestly, you have been such a constant in my life for close to 8 years now. And I feel like we grew up in the Lord together, starting out as college freshmen, attending a Bible college, just wanting to know who the Lord is and what He had for our lives. And we really worked that out, and I've watched you grow into the woman that you are today. I want to mention just a few of my favorite things about Paige. I'm sure that none of you have noticed Paige's enthusiasm. It pretty much starts with the way that she walks into a room, which is really more like flitting and bouncing from person to person. There's been some days that I see a figure crossing the room out of the corner of my eye, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to be attacked. And it's actually just my friend Paige tackling me into a hug. Paige is full of joy and so ready to laugh and rejoice at any moment. I've seen her demeanor, even on hard and discouraging days, be full of joy and rejoicing, and it's evidence that Paige's hope isn't set on things that wither or fade, but it's actually set on a living hope that's imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, and it lights up a room. I think this is getting shorter. Is this getting shorter? It wasn't there when I started. Great. Paige also has a great sense of adventure. She has this uncontainable curiosity about life. She's always up for an adventure, whether it's leaving at 3 a.m. To hike to see the sunrise at Red River Gorge, dancing the night away at her annual Halloween bashes, or navigating through a Puerto Rican rainforest. Paige is up for an adventure at any turn. One that comes to mind is the night that we somewhat stole, but mostly really just borrowed without full permission, a car in Puerto Rico to go salsa dancing at the most popular spot in the city. This was upon graduating college from Boise. I do have to say we've gotten ourselves into a couple precarious situations, but I would like to think that the Lord has also continued to give us increased wisdom over the years and how to use that sense of adventure. Paige is whimsical. I actually did not know what that word meant before becoming Paige's friend. And for any of you that maybe don't know what that word means, I've looked up the definition to tell you. Whimsical is playfully quaint or fanciful, especially in an appealing and amusing way. Paige loves anything that is whimsical. If she's choosing curtains, she wants them whimsical. If she's reading a book, it's gonna be whimsical. Choosing a spouse? Whimsical? Maybe? It's also funny because Paige herself is pretty whimsical. Early on in our friendship, I found out that Paige does this thing where she talks to plants. Like, I don't know how many people know this, but full-blown conversations, I think? I'm not sure. In my mind, that's what it was. She also describes them. It causes them to grow, friends. Talking to plants causes them to grow. She also describes them by their emotions. So this plant is happy, and this plant is sad. I eventually started dating this really great guy who also describes plants by their emotions, so I'm not sure who's the odd one out anymore, but... Paige is loyal. Paige is the most loyal friends that you can find. Being friends for 7 years doesn't happen by chance. And once you become friends with Paige, you're pretty much stuck with her. She's not going anywhere. I've spoken about various adventures that we've had together, but Paige also perseveres through the hardest moments in a friendship. Not just supporting a friend in need, but bearing burdens with them. 3 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And the day that I got the call, my first call after was Paige. I got myself together enough to drive home. When I got home, Paige was there. We sat in silence, and she held me while I cried and until I fell asleep. I had no family in town, but I had my friend Paige, who empathized with me and loved me and reminded me of the Lord's loving care for me. She's one of the most loyal friends that I've ever had. And the last thing I want to talk about Paige is that Paige loves the Lord. Ultimately, what's truly beautiful about Paige is that she's made in the image of God. Paige was once dead in her sins, but she's been made alive in Christ and has been given a new spirit. I've watched you grow so much, Paige, over the years in Christ-likeness. I've seen you repent of sin so quickly and over again. And I've watched you cling to Christ. We have confessed together that we believe, and there's times that we have prayed together for the Lord to help our unbelief. I watched her pursue accountability and fellowship with believers and serve her church faithfully. Watching her do these things has sharpened me and reminded me of the power of the Lord's grace in the life of a believer. She's clothed with strength and dignity, and it's evident from her life that she loves the Lord with all her heart, all her mind, and all her soul, and all her strength. And this is actually what is at the core of who Paige is. Evan, you have gained such a treasure today. It has been a joy to watch you pursue Paige. I've loved Paige for a long time and prayed for a spouse for her for a long time. It has been a joy to watch you. I'm so thankful for your godly example to her, and then also to a watching world who's seeing how you pursue her. Your marriage is a reflection of Christ's love for the church, and all these people are here supporting you as you pursue that endeavor, and are praying that the Lord would keep you and use you mightily, that Christ's glory and beauty and power would be displayed in and through your marriage starting today. I love you guys.
Yes, go get Callie. Go. I'm gonna have to go down through here.
Hello. I'm afraid I don't have any memories of Grand Theft Auto to recount today. And honestly, brother, most of the exhortation and encouragement I've already given, I think a few times now at the bachelor party and last night, but as my wife was so kind enough to help me remember, it's the good things that we have to share don't need to just be shared once, but can be recycled and reminded over and over again. So that's what I'll do today. So as I was trying to think about a speech, I was thinking kind of about some of my favorite moments that I like to have, that I have in my life, and one of them might be because I'm a white millennial, but I really like Bob Ross, and so like watching Bob Ross work in some of his recordings is just spectacular, right? Like he takes this blank canvas and he's got this just incredibly soothing, nice voice and amazing hair.
and you're watching him work, and you're thinking like, no, this doesn't make any sense. This is not going to happen. Like he's putting these globs of paint with these thick strokes, weird colors. He's talking about happy plants, which I'm sure you identify with, Paige. And he's putting them on his canvas, right? And you're watching it, and there's sometimes like I'm rooting against him. I'm hoping this doesn't work out, right? And then as things go on, something kind of clicks, and all of a sudden, all those seemingly random colors and strokes and textures just start to make sense. And you see what Bob Ross had in mind all along. You get that excitement, and like, there it is. Like it's like a magic trick, right? So for me, I get that same kind of wonder and delight today as I think back on the day that you and I met, Evan, when I was working in a coffee shop, right? And there's really no reason for me to have thought back then, when some tall, gangly guy from Mississippi or Alabama, I couldn't really figure out what at the time, came in town, met, chatted, and no reason to think that one day, over the course of time, you would move to town, you would join our church, we would be a community group together, we would lead a community group together, and become one of my closest friends and counselors. Or that one of my coworkers from that cafe at the time would start attending our church and then join our community group and be seated next to that gangly guy today. And I have to admit, I was a little nervous when my wife started talking to me about the idea of the two of you getting set up. I'm not saying that we had that. There's a lot of people who are pulling for this. But I've never really enjoyed the role of matchmaker. I'm just not very good at it. And I didn't really have the eyes to see the possibilities. But here we are, no thanks to me, and I am so excited for the both of you. It's that same excitement that I feel when that painting starts to come together, that moment that it clicks. Because I love what I'm seeing. And I know that there's still so much more to come. So much more my mind is about to be blown. Evan, when I think about your unassuming kindness and intelligence, your warmth and selfless service, and Paige, when I reflect on your bright personality and laughter, and your fierce loyalty and bravery, I can't help but think, of course they would be together. Like, who else would God bring together to balance each other's weaknesses and strengths to make his kingdom known? It's the two of you, of course. And Paige, I could say a whole lot more to encourage you, but I'm not actually your best man. I'm Evan, so I'll save your encouragement for another day. And I think as Christians, we would agree with Paul from Romans that no one is truly good, right? There's no one, I don't know if that might be Romans, but there are none who are righteous, no, not one. Not at least without the redeeming work of Jesus Christ in their lives. And even then, when people are saved, I try to be careful not to overuse the word good, just so that the word doesn't lose its weight or its value. And so I say that, Paige, because I want you to understand that I don't say this next sentence lightly. You are marrying a good man. I've seen so much, especially this past year, how God has strengthened him to lead others while suffering his various trials of his own, and to give up his own preferences for the sake of maintaining and building unity in a group, and take on more responsibilities to help lighten the load for someone else, help lighten the load even for me. And I don't have enough words truly to express how thankful I am for him in my life, how thankful I am for you in my life, brother. And I want you to know too, Evan, I don't say these things to puff you up, right? You know that. But I say these things to point you to the giver of your gifts, and to remind you that just as he is good to give these things to you, he's also good to take them away. Your life as a leader now takes on a whole new joy and weight. You're commanded to lay your life down for your bride, just as Jesus did for his, and he nourishes her. You're to nourish Paige. But just as God commands you, you know he also strengthens you to accomplish these commands. What a good God we serve. So I purposely didn't ask for how much time you have, because I was pretty sure I would run over it regardless. But I want to kind of just close by speaking a blessing over you from Numbers 6. And I'll just go ahead and say it. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So any of you all have glasses or wine or drinks or anything left, you can go ahead and raise it. To Evan and Paige. Roll Tide.
For those of you who don't know me, should know yourself. I am Paige's sister. So outside of our parents and our brother, I've known her the longest. I'm not a good writer, so I'm very thankful I've known her that long. I have lots of stories I can share with you.
Okay.
So let's get started. We shared a room for the longest, not the longest, the majority of our childhood. There's this one night that we had been threatened with our lives not to get out of bed again. Of course, as a kid, it was very unfair. Now, as a mom looking back, I'm sure we had been out of bed 100 times for nonsense. I am the rule follower between the two of us, so I was laying in bed very still, very quietly, and all of a sudden, in between the wall and the bunk bed appears a pair of feet, and then legs, and then hips, and then just the bottom of a belly, and then the giggling turns nervous, and then a panicked, "Help me!" Paige, being the adventurer that she is, had decided to squeeze between the top bunk and the wall to scare me. That was until her head wouldn't squeeze. As teenagers, Paige had the unfortunate person of me being her chauffeur. And so we spent hours in my car learning, as I learned a manual transmission. Y'all, I was a very slow learner. For months, I would either stall or bunny hop my way through every intersection. And from our church to our house, there was a stretch of road that had 4 or 5 intersections right back to back. And to my misfortune, I got stopped at the first one, which meant that I was going to get stopped at all of them. I'm starting to get panicked, but Paige, being the encourager she is, was pumping me up. "You can do this. You got this. Don't worry about it." Well, I stalled. And then got the car started back and started bunny hopping, and that's when I noticed next to us is this older gentleman who is pointing and laughing and keeping pace with me as I stalled and then bunny hopped and then stalled. Of course, my panic becomes humiliation, and I'm ready to give up right there in the middle of an intersection. But thankfully, Paige got me laughing, started making fun of the man and his missing teeth, and we made it home that night. Now, as adults, Paige is my best friend. She has selflessly served me more times than I can recount tonight. One time, my water broke 7 weeks early with our oldest, and within 30 minutes, she was there at the hospital just to hold my hand. The drive should have taken an hour, but, you know. There was also the time that even though she was going through a really difficult time in her life, She dropped everything to help me box up our house and watch our boys as we moved back to Tennessee. So those are just a few stories. I could keep going, but those capture her adventurous nature, her encouraging spirit, and her servant heart. Evan, I've only had the privilege of knowing you for a year, so I don't have any fun stories to share about you yet. But know that I've been praying for you for years. And I've seen a lot of those similar qualities over this past year. You've taken Paige on adventures, you've encouraged her, and you've served her. And today, y'all are becoming one. And I'm so excited to watch y'all as you embark on adventures together, as you encourage one another, and as you serve God and one another. So, to Evan and Paige.